Turns out you don't need a zip code that people brag about to live somewhere great. Somewhere between I've never heard of it and wait, people actually live there, the Midwest is quietly stacking up some of the most surprisingly awesome towns in America. These aren't quaint little nothing towns. These are places that have personality, opportunity, and frankly, they've got it figured out. Small town vibes, surprisingly big quality of life, housing prices that'll make your city dwelling friends physically ill, 11-minute commutes. These Midwest towns will surprise you. I looked at data from almost every town in the Midwest to find the best ones to live in. And before you click off, these aren't your basic tourist trap towns or overpriced college cities. I'm talking about hidden gems, places where your money actually goes further, your neighbors are actually decent people, and you could build a life without going completely broke. We're looking at everything: cost of living, jobs, things to do, community, and that feeling. You know, the one where you walk around and just think, yeah, I could actually live here. This is gonna be fun. Let's take a look. Number 10, Galena, Illinois. Most people hear Illinois and right away they picture Chicago. The traffic, the wind, the price tag, the violence that rivals the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan. Galena is the other Illinois. You know, the I do yoga and drink tea part of Illinois. Galena sits in the far northwest corner of Illinois, tucked into the driftless hills right up against Wisconsin and Iowa borders. And we're talking about terrain that the glaciers completely missed. Not a metaphor, not a casual description. The actual glaciers bypassed this region and left behind a landscape of wooded ridges, river bluffs, and hollows that look nothing like what you picture when someone says Illinois. This town has about 3,200 people, which puts it firmly in the small town community. It's also where the Galena River meets the Mississippi River. Now here's what most people miss when they don't know much about Illinois. You have the Chicago metro region in the northeast, and then you have everything else. Galena is everything else. Statistically, it's one of the best places to live in Illinois. If it's the kind of place you'd want to move to, here's some little bonuses. The cost of living in Galena is dramatically lower than the national average. It's about 9% lower. Housing sits well below the national average as well, and property taxes are reasonable, which is something you usually don't hear whenever you're talking about Illinois. Galena is a functional town, not some place that looks like it's just there for looks. There are restaurants open, there are shops that are actually good, and it also gets some tourists, but not overrun like it's the only place in the country you can buy fresh cheesecake or something. Here's a little tidbit of information or history about Galena. Ulysses S. Grant lived here. His home is still standing and open to the public. After the Civil War, the people of Galena gave him a house as a gift. The man who commanded the Union Army and became the 18th president of the United States called this town home. Galena's never made a huge deal about this. It's just there. That's the kind of place this is. Now, you got the outdoors here too. The Galena Territory offers hundreds of miles of trails, golf, and outdoor recreation. You got the Mississippi River there, the Apple River Canyon State Park is nearby, and the fall foliage in the driftless hills is kind of a thing that makes you question living in New York or California. Now here's my no BS assessment. Is Galena perfect? No, the job market is limited if you're not in hospitality, tourism, retail, or remote work. If you do want a real job, you're probably gonna have to go to Dubuque, about 30 minutes away, or Quad Cities, which is about an hour away from there. That's the deal you accept when you move to Galena. Galena's been called one of America's best preserved historic cities, and that's pretty good. They got a really high rate of National Registered Historic Places in this town. If you decide this is the type of place you want to live, the average home value here is about $300,000. Number 9, Brookings, South Dakota. South Dakota, I know, but stay with me, because Brookings is going to make the financial case for itself in about 45 seconds, and you're going to have trouble arguing with it. Brookings sits in eastern South Dakota, about 50 miles north of Sioux Falls, on the open northern plains. South Dakota State University is here, which immediately changes what the town is. The population's about 24,000 residents, so it's large enough to have infrastructure, small enough to have a community. The landscape is the northern plains, enormous sky, wide open, horizons in every direction, grassland and cropland rolling out to the edge of visibility. This is either going to click with you or it's going to shut you down right there. People who choose Brookings tend to decide early and act accordingly. So why would you move here? Well, South Dakota has no state income tax. Zero, none. That's it. You keep more of your paycheck from day one. That's not a minor detail. That is a structural financial advantage that compounds every single year you live there. SDSU keeps Brookings young. The research and agriculture technology sector has grown quietly into something real, drawing professionals who want a serious career on the prairies. Now, it's not just for college students and people trying to get into farm technology or something. It's good for families. They've got a children's museum, a natural history museum, a symphony, an art center. If you've never been there, you probably would have never guessed that they have some of those things. The gap between expectations and reality is exactly what this entire video is about, it seems like, because that's what all these places have in common. Okay, so let's talk about the financial stuff. There is no state income tax, like I'd said. The average home value is well below the national average, which the current national average is about $360,000. You got low property taxes, a growing professional economy. If you're doing the math on where your money goes furthest without sacrificing quality of life, Brookings makes a case that's genuinely difficult to dismiss. Now here's the no BS assessment. Winter here is real. It is in the northern plains. Winters here are affordable. The social scene is smaller than a giant city. If you need regular access to major urban amenities, Sioux Falls is about 50 miles south. But if you can handle the winters and you want your financial life to make sense, Brookings is one of the most underrated moves on this list. The average home value here is $308,000. Like I said, that's about $50,000 less, or a little more than that, than the national average right now. Number 8, Mineral Point, Wisconsin. Mineral Point has been called the third oldest city in the state. It was founded by Cornish miners in the 1830s, and it's quietly becoming one of the most concentrated art colonies in the Midwest. Nobody saw that coming. Nobody decides they're gonna, further their art career by moving to Mineral Point. I mean, unless your art involves minerals. Maybe that's a thing. Mineral Point sits in Iowa County in southwestern Wisconsin, about 50 miles southwest of Madison, in the unglaciated driftless region, which we talked about earlier. The landscapes here roll. There are ridges and valleys and limestone outcroppings everywhere. The population is around 2,500 people, which isn't big. You end up swiping right on a dating app 4 times and you're done. The Cornish miners who came here in the 1820s and 30s were chasing lead and zinc deposits in the hills. They built stone cottages directly into the hillside using limestone they pulled out of the ground. Those cottages are still standing. Now, as far as livability goes, this place is pretty solid. Their livability score is 81, and if you've been following this channel enough, I bring that up occasionally, and that's a pretty high number. Anything above, let's say 75, is doing pretty good. Anything below like 55 sucks, and you should avoid it at all costs. This place has a low cost of living, next to no crime, they got some employment, their housing, their healthcare is great, their schools are great. Everything here is graded an A or A+. Now, I always bring up the art of these different places because that's important to a lot of people, especially retirees. And I have a lot of people retired or getting ready to retire on this channel. That's why I always bring it up. But the art colony here is legitimate and has been for decades. Painters, sculptors, potters, glassblowers, jewelers. The concentration of working artists in this town of 2,500 is genuinely unusual. They have 30 plus studios at one count from about 2 years ago. If you visit this area and the surrounding area, you feel like you're in the, like the English countryside. It really is a unique place to live. So you got a good place with good stats and a low cost of living, which it's 3% lower than the national average. The taxes here aren't crazy and home prices aren't offensive. But here's my no BS assessment of the place. Mineral Point is genuinely small. 2,500 people means limited dining options on Tuesday night, limited job diversity, and a limited social scene that requires you make your own fun with some regularity. Madison is about 50 miles to the northeast for when you actually need a real town and some cheese curds. Again, this is a great place to retire or remote work, especially if you really enjoy winter, because it gets pretty rough here. Mineral Point is also one of the most underrated places in the entire Midwest. That's my opinion. The average home value here is $309,000. Number 7, Marquette, Michigan. If you've ever said to yourself, I just want to live somewhere with real nature, not park nature, not trail on the weekend nature, but honest to God wilderness access from your front door, pay close attention. Marquette sits on the southern shore of Lake Superior in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, not near Lake Superior, on Lake Superior. The harbor's right there, the sandstone cliffs are right there, the water is right there, the population is around 20,000 people, which makes it the largest city in the Upper Peninsula, or UP. The Upper Peninsula is a specific kind of place. It is separated by the Lower Peninsula by the Straits of Mackinac. It has its own identity, its own pace, its own relationship with the weather, which is a little rough sometimes, especially when you factor in the lake effect snowfall. It's legendary here. If I haven't scared you away yet, keep listening. Marquette has been put on the international mountain biking map. The trail network here draws riders from across the country and beyond. In summer, it looks like Colorado accidentally got planted in Michigan. In winter, the cross-country skiing and snowshoeing access from the town is immediate and serious. Northern Michigan University keeps the city young and the coffee shops occupied. The downtown is a solid place to be, and it's got independent bookstores, restaurants, the good craft beer scene, which are necessary if you have a college crowd. Marquette has a category of residents that people there call Yoopers, Upper Peninsula people. UPers, Yoopers, and a Yooper identity is a real thing. People who grow up here develop a fierce attachment to the place that borders on spiritual. Now, Yooper has their own dialect and stuff like that. It's a weird thing. But it's not totally unusual. The entire United States has little places where the dialect gets a little weird, like I'm from Southern California, and it's getting better, but we say dude far too much. And you even go to Yonkers in New York, and that's a little weird from the rest of New York. It's all over the country like that. But the Yoopers, they got their own thing going on. Now, it does have great outdoors. Lake Superior is the largest freshwater lake in the world by surface area. It is cold, it is dramatic, and is unlike anything else. Picture Rock's National Lakeshore is an hour east, one of the most visually stunning stretches of shoreline in the entire country. It's actually pretty interesting. I've never been there, but the pictures look amazing. Here's an interesting fact about being a YouTube creator. If you ever mention that you don't understand something, or you've never been someplace, or you've only heard about something, that gets the basement crowd typing out things. They're always an expert on it. Well, you wouldn't know because you've never been there, but they always got to throw that in there. It's amazing. But Picture Rock National Lakeshore does look amazing. It's sort of a hard place to run out of things to explore. Now, here's my no BS assessment. The winters here are rough, just like most of the places in the Midwest, especially the upper Midwest. It's not a warning, it's a statement of fact. Marquette averages about 140 inches of snow per year. If you can't make peace with that, this is not your town. But if you do decide you want to move here, the average home value is about $316,000. That is up almost 9% over the last year. It's quite a jump, especially for the Midwest. All right, we are 4 towns in, and one thing they all have in common is the cold. If you're thinking about retiring to one of these places, they are all affordable, but they also have some pretty rough winters. Nothing like Arizona and Florida. If you're from this area and you're just going to stay put for retirement, you already know what you're in for. And if you are one of those people, I'd love to hear what you think about your town. Leave it in the comment section. All right, let's get back to it. Number 6, Decorah, Iowa. Iowa suddenly forgets to be flat right around here, and when it does that, everything changes about this state. Decorah sits in northeastern Iowa in what is still the driftless zone. The upper Iowa River runs through this area, and the terrain is legitimately dramatic, especially compared to the rest of Iowa. They have hills in a town that was first incorporated in 1857. They also have a college here, Luther College, which changes what this small town is all about. Without it, I don't think they'd have much here. The Norwegian immigrant heritage in Decorah runs deep, and that's something they celebrate here. They even got the Norwegian American Museum, which is one of the most significant ethnic heritage museums in the country. It's been here since 1877. It's not a roadside attraction, it's a serious institution. Decorah, like everywhere in Iowa, I don't know if you know this, but they drink some beer there. They drink a lot of beer, it seems like. But they got a pretty large beer scene for a town of under 8,000 residents. I have it on good authority that just outside of town, Toppling Goliath Brewery is one of the best ones they have in the area. You know what else they got? A bald eagle nest. I was watching it today. They've got an egg, and there's this bald eagle who's been sitting on it all day. It's kind of cool, but they got a lot of outdoor stuff going on in the Decorah area. all helping build on their livability score, which again, this is another place that has an excellent livability score. It's 86. Everything is A+ except for employment, which is C+. And it's affordable. Iowa has a reasonable property tax. The cost of living is well below the national average, and you're getting a nationally regarded craft brewery and some of the most unexpected scenery in the Midwest for that price. Now here's my no BS assessment. Decorah is genuinely remote from any major metro area. The job market is primarily college, healthcare, and agriculture stuff. And that's about it. Again, I got to go back to the remote work. You can do that anywhere, so this is a good place for it because everything's cheap. The average home value is about $298,000. Not bad. Number 5, Yellow Springs, Ohio. Yellow Springs, Ohio is a seriously unusual and livable small town, and almost nobody outside of Ohio is paying any attention to it. You know why? Because it's in Ohio. Yellow Springs sits in southwestern Ohio, about 20 miles east of Dayton and about 70 miles from Columbus. The population is around 3,700 residents, and Antioch College has been there since 1852. They even got a nature preserve. Glen Helen Nature Preserve is here with over 1,000 acres of old growth forest. They also got some spring-fed streams on the edge of town. Now, what's cool about this place, it is a small town, and it's a nice small town. You're also close enough to Columbus and Dayton to where if you need to go there, you're in good shape. You know, it's not like a 3-hour ordeal, but you're far enough away where you don't get any of the nonsense that comes with those two cities. Now, again, back to the whole art thing. Yellow Springs is a progressive art village sitting in the middle of southwestern Ohio farmland, and it's completely unbothered by the contrast. It's been a counterculture haven since the 1960s. They've got 0 chain restaurants, and I think they're going to keep it that way. Not one. A local community that actively chose to maintain that reality is pretty cool. Another cool factor about this place, Dave Chappelle lives here and he's got a comedy club in town. Here's my honest assessment of Yellow Springs, Ohio. The housing market in Yellow Springs has been pushed upwards because of its reputation. For a town of 3,700 people, it has gotten some serious national attention. Prices are no longer as low as they once were. I mean, that's everywhere, but they've been climbing at a good clip. But compared to other places in Ohio, like let's say Columbus and Cincinnati, it's still affordable. And the quality of life per dollar spent here by most serious measures is exceptional. The average home value here is $367,000. Number 4, Lawrence, Kansas. Lawrence, Kansas. People's brains go to a very specific place when you say Kansas, usually like paint drying type stuff. But Lawrence is a very special city living in the shadow of Kansas City. Lawrence sits in northeastern Kansas, about 35 miles west of Kansas City and about 25 miles east of Topeka, not too far from Fort Riley, which is in the middle of Kansas and it's a military base. It sits on the Kansas River in a part of Kansas that has some rolling hills and trees. This is also where you'll find the University of Kansas, and if you've spent any time studying what makes a small city thrive, you know a major university is a livability accelerator. It brings in restaurants, events, art programs, intellectual energy, and a reason for people to show up and do something and maybe never leave. If you move to Lawrence, you'll find out that Massachusetts Street is where everything happens. It's one of the best commercial streets in the Midwest. It runs from the Kansas River up through the center of Lawrence with a bunch of different live music venues, independent bookstores, craft beer bars, and genuinely good restaurants that you would expect in a city 3 times its size. I have a friend that lives there. I think she spent her whole life there. Massachusetts Street's one of those places, like on a Friday night, you can go down there without a plan and just be there for 5 hours and enjoy it. Lawrence is the site of Bleeding, Kansas, a violent prelude to the Civil War where pro-slavery and anti-slavery forces fought for control of the Kansas territory. The town was founded by anti-slavery New England settlers. The history here is not just footnote, it's sort of foundational. The cost of living here is pretty low. You can still get a house for under the national average. For a city with this level of cultural infrastructure, university resources, a music scene, and a quality restaurant base, that number is remarkable. Kansas has reasonable property taxes, utilities costs below the national average, and they're really not in a hurry to turn their cities into major metropolitan areas. Here's my no BS assessment. Lawrence leans politically liberal in a conservative state, which either matters to you or it doesn't. Summers are hot and humid, and this is Kansas, so you get some wild weather. Tornadoes are a real thing and require a real plan. But as a place to build a life, you can do a lot worse than Lawrence. The average home value here is $322,000. Number 3, Stillwater, Minnesota. Stillwater is pronounced exactly how it looks, but what Stillwater actually is, it's Minnesota's oldest city on the St. Croix River. Stillwater sits in Washington County in eastern Minnesota on the St. Croix River, directly across from Wisconsin. It's about 20 miles east of St. Paul and about 30 miles from Minneapolis. The population here, it's around 20,000. The St. Croix River Valley is a national scenic riverway, federally protected and genuinely spectacular. It's a beautiful part of Minnesota right here. The Victorian architecture flows on the hillsides here. When you look across from Wisconsin, you see a skyline of church steeples, 19th century brick, and forest that has no right to look as good as it does. It was incorporated in 1854 and it has all the architecture to prove it. The downtown is built from the lumber era. Old growth white pine came out of these forests and built half the Midwest. And the money that flowed through Stillwater left behind commercial buildings and mansions that are still standing and still stunning. Stillwater has the highest concentration of antique bookshops in any city its size in Minnesota. It's had the booktown identity for decades. On a Saturday in Stillwater, you could spend the morning at a farmer's market, the afternoon at a used bookstore the size of a small library, and the evening at a restaurant overlooking the river. This is another one that has excellent stats. Its livability score is 85. The only thing that brings them down, it's a little expensive. It's about 14% higher than the national average. Everything else is excellent. The good news about this one, it's another one of those, I like to call them Goldilocks cities. They're far enough away from major cities to not get any of the problems, but close enough there. If you need to go there, it's not too far away. Here's the main draw for families here. The Stillwater School District is consistently rated among the best in Minnesota, which is a state that takes public education very seriously. If you're moving here with children and school quality is a primary factor, Stillwater belongs at the top of your lists. Now here's my no BS assessment. Stillwater's one of the pricier cities on this list. The secret has been partially out for a while, and the housing market reflects it. The winters here are genuine Minnesota winters, cold, snowy, and long. If that isn't something you can handle, it doesn't matter how nice the city is, it's not going to work for you. The average home value here is $435,000. Number 2, Petoskey, Michigan. Michigan keeps showing up on lists because of towns like Petoskey. This is the type of place that has a quality of life that people, when they move here, they never stop being grateful for it. Petoskey sits on the Little Traverse Bay in Emmett County in northern Lower Michigan, about 60 miles northeast of Traverse City. It's a cool place. It's got the lake right there. They've also got a casino just outside of town, and they've only got a population of about 6,000 people. This has typical Michigan landscapes up here. Northern Michigan at its finest. Forests, inland lakes, bay views, and a horizon in the summer that is so blue it barely seems real. Petoskey stone, a fossilized coral found on the beaches here, is the Michigan State Stone. People drive hours to look for them on the shoreline. Now they got the Gaslight District downtown, which is the core of the small city commercial district, I guess you could say. Brick storefronts, independent shops, genuinely good restaurants, a bookstore that has been operating for decades, and a scale of walkability in the fullest sense. Now this is interesting. Ernest Hemingway summered in Petoskey area as a boy and as a young man. The woods and the lakes and the rivers of northern Michigan shaped his life. Nick Adams, Hemingway's autobiographical alter ego, fished these rivers and camped in those forests. Now, the outdoors is why you move here. You got, during the summer, sailing, kayaking, and paddleboarding. The Petoskey State Park Beach is one of the best in northern Michigan. Little Traverse Bay Wheelway is a paved trail that runs along the bay for 26 miles, connecting Petoskey and Harbor Springs. You got skiing 20 minutes away. The inland lakes of Emmett County. All in all, this is a great place to be if you like to be outdoors and fish and be on the water. Again, this one has the best stats. 83 is their livability score, and there are a lot of reasons to live here. But here's my honest no BS assessment. Again, the winters can be brutal. That goes without saying. I mean, you're almost in the Upper Peninsula, and you're right on the water. Here's what kills it for a lot of people. If you've got to fly anywhere, to get to a major airport, you got about a 4-hour drive to Detroit. Grand Rapids is a little bit closer, but it's almost a regional airport. I mean, it's barely a international airport. Other than that, you can grab a regional airport in the area, but if you've ever had to fly out of a regional airport, you know it kind of sucks because the flights sometimes don't take off, or they only have maybe one every other day. And they're expensive. More expensive than a big airport. But if you can get past all that and decide you're going to move to Stillwater, the average home value here is $435,000. Not bad. All right, before we get to number 1, if you're thinking about moving to one of these places, there's a nice little link for Home and Money in the description area below. They can get you in touch with a real estate agent anywhere in the country. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Mackinac Island, Michigan. When I tell you Mackinac Island might be the single most unique and livable small community in the entire Midwest, I need you to understand what I mean by unique. There are no cars on Mackinac Island. None. Zero. Not permitted. You get around by foot, bicycle, or by horse-drawn carriage. They don't even have golf carts here. If you walk down the street, you'd think that every business is a bike shop. You know how they put a bunch of bikes out front? Yeah, that's how every business looks. Mackinac Island sits in the Straits of Mackinac, the 3-mile-wide channel connecting Lake Huron and Lake Michigan, between Michigan's upper and lower peninsulas. It's 3 miles long and 2 miles wide. The year-round population is only about 500 people, which makes it by far the smallest community on this list, but it functions as a full town with a school, medical center, churches, restaurants, and a civic life that operates 365 days a year. You get there by ferry from Mackinac City, or St. Ignace, or you could actually take a small plane. In winter when the straits freeze, there's an ice bridge. The island has been inhabited continuously for thousands of years by indigenous people, then by French fur traders, and then by the British military, also American forces, and eventually people that own resorts. The entire island is a Michigan state park except for a small village at its base. That means 80% of this land is permanently protected forest, limestone bluffs, and historic sites. Now, only a certain type of person is going to move here, and if you make that decision to move here, you probably won't reverse it. The community of about 500 winter residents is tight in a way that most people never experience. Everyone knows everyone. The island goes quiet after Labor Day and becomes something completely different. Serene, unhurried, strikingly beautiful in the snow. The summer brings the tourists and the energy and the economic activity that make the year-round life financially viable. The absence of cars here, though, is not a gimmick. It's a genuine quality of life condition that changes how the place feels at a fundamental level. You're not going to have Harleys riding into town on Sunday mornings, you know, all these people in their Harleys and their Sunday rides, and you're not going to have a bunch of loud cars. It just doesn't happen here. Since it is an island tourist area, you got the Mackinac Island fudge here. It's legitimately famous. There are fudge shops that have been operating on Main Street for over a century, and the tourists who come every summer are called fudgies by the locals, affectionately mostly. The fudge is excellent, but here's what the fudge represents. A commercial tradition so consistent and so long-running that has become part of the island's identity of all things. These people just like you to come in the summer, spend all your money to get them through the winter, and they're perfectly happy. If you want to live here, like full-time, living on Mackinac Island requires a genuine commitment to specific types of life. A major shopping means a ferry ride to the mainland. Medical emergencies require evacuation. The winter population is small enough that your social world is limited at best. That's what you're trading to live here. And most of the residents will tell you that the trade is the best one they've ever made. Now, here's the honest, no BS assessment. Mackinac Island is not for everyone. It's not trying to be. The people who choose it year-round are people who looked at the full picture, the isolation, the logistics, the winters, the social world, and decided that they want to give this island a try. And they liked it. Now, when it comes to buying a home here, they say the average home value is about $469,000. Now, that's a little misleading. They don't have much for sale, but they have some that are just plots of land or they're older, run-down homes, I guess you could say. And that brings the price down artificially. The average home value here, in my opinion, is closer to about $800,000. But it might be worth it. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now, don't forget to hit that like button. Maybe watch another one of my videos. Have a great day. Be nice to each other.